the
So
Constitution.
if they were investigating January 6th, you believe they were violating an ethic obligation?
Nope. I think the common theme here is you putting words in my mouth, and I'm not going to tolerate it, nor will the men and women of the FBI.
Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts forward instead of lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second donation hit.
Nobody really talks about this that much. Well, this is a big game that they play. I even learned this big game when I used to manage social media for politicians. FBI Director Kash Patel is not messing around as he's getting barraged by a bunch of Democrat senators in a hearing where they're trying to criticize every single thing he's doing in the FBI to turn it around. It's not just no-name Democrats that you've never heard of, but even Mr. I want to be a big name, Senator Chris Van Hollen, who went to El Salvador to help an illegal. That's who Kash Patel is going to have to deal with, and he handles them very, very well. It's SeanDaniel here, filming from the middle of South Korea. Finally have the good camera set up, decent lighting, nice little backlight on the hair. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider hitting that like button or subscribing. Now let's go.
It concerns me that you're not familiar with the core concept of due process applying to all persons as written in black and white in the Constitution.
As the first public defender who's ever served at the FBI as its director, I am more aware of due process than any predecessor in my seat. You are delineating between removal proceedings and criminal acts. My job is to investigate criminal acts. That's what we do.
And senators like this guy hate that he's actually investigating these criminal acts, not just by regular people, but by deep state officials and government employees. That's what they hate. Oh, this woman is about to get cooked. Get ready.
I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was a sad, solemn duty. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book. There are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people, and they were rightly called out. And you should give that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6th insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers, and whom you referred to as political prisoners. Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts forward instead of lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second donation hit.
The answer is both. I believe that
the answer is you're failing, not me.
Play my time.
Go ahead.
Mr. Patel, I believe that the members of the FBI, and I know many of them, many retired, 38,000 people, as you say, it's a little less than that now, deserve the very best, deserve extraordinary independence, deserve freedom from the fears of being investigated, the freedom of coming forward to make sure they're doing their job.
This is one reason why so many of us love Kash Patel. It's not just because he's not some government official who's always been in government, always kissed ass to get ahead, but no, he was actually a public defender. He knows what's going on. 2, he's actually willing to point out the behind-the-scenes game this lady's playing and call her out. If you're going to accuse me of committing perjury, tell me the exact facts. Bring it up right here. But he knows how much of this is a political game, not just for her to get more famous, her to get more Twitter audiences, more to get to get more, appearances on networks, but how they use these hearings to take the clips from these hearings and run them as donation propaganda to help them get donations. Put them in emails, put them on social media. Nobody really talks about this that much. Well, this is a big game that they play. I even learned this big game when I used to manage social media for politicians. If they could get some big TV hit, some clip where they were saying some important thing against a villainized person from the other side, they could run that clip to no end to run their donations through the roof. And I've not heard this talked about a lot, and I'm glad he brought it up.
3,000 cases against violent
well,
criminals
that's not my question. We know that you...
Well, you asked if I was weaponizing the FBI, and I am not. I'm giving you the hard, concrete examples of the men and women putting handcuffs on bad people, doing harm to our children and innocent Americans. I do not see weaponization.
You have placed on leave FBI employees responsible for the investigation of January 6th. That sounds political to me.
I have not placed anyone on leave who has not violated their ethical obligation or their oath to the Constitution.
So if they were investigating January 6th, you believe they were violating an ethical obligation?
Nope. I think the common theme here is you putting words in my mouth, and I'm not going to tolerate it, nor will the men and women of the FBI.
Well, you did place on leave an analyst responsible for investigating Russia's meddling in the 2016 election. Is that politicization? Is that retribution?
No, not if she broke the law or the ethical guidelines. I don't know which case you're talking about, but that's the standard. And we will hold ourselves inwardly accountable, and we will not be strayed from our mission because people think we are politicizing the Bureau. If you want to talk about someone who was attacked by a weaponized Bureau, you're looking at him. And now he's the director of the FBI, and he's cleaning it up.
Well, I would just say to everyone who's listening that the FBI needs to be focused on its mission to keep the entire country safe. It should not be weaponized for partisan political gain. Thank you,
We are.
Chairman.
The reason Kash Patel is so impressive, because not only does he have balls, but he's got to deal with all of this crap all the time as he's making a bunch of moves, dealing with a bunch of pressure, a bunch of work while cleaning up the FBI. Because to do both of those things, I imagine, is extremely complicated. To go in and clean up the FBI, deal with all of the infighting, deal with all the people that not liking you making all these changes to the way that they've been functioning, the way they've been having their safe bubble, the way they've been able to pull games behind the scenes that they can't pull anymore. That's tough. Secondly, you got to do all these hearings while you're trying to clean up an organization. That's exhausting. And he still has to stay focused to give these good answers, which we're getting entertained by, but also to not put himself in a corner by answering something wrongfully. Because if he gives them one line that makes him look bad, makes the president look bad, they're going to run it to no end on all the media. That's a lot of pressure. And that's a lesson for you guys and for me to think about. This is how they slow down the progress of the Trump administration. Not only do they put all the lies in the media so that the public knowledge or public idea of the Trump administration becomes negative, but two, they slow you down, which Robert F. Kennedy's talked about this, many other people have. They slow down your progress of putting in place what you want to put in place as your administration by doing all these review hearings, doing all these investigative hearings, these committees that looks into every little thing you've done. They say it's because it's a check and balance thing, but it's really to just criticize everything you've done and to take your time away from actually doing your job. Because it's not like Kash Patel doesn't have to prep for these meetings. When he's got a committee hearing coming up where they're going to go over some things that he's done, things he's planning to do, he's got to prepare for them. His staff has to prepare things for him, which obviously takes away from what he can actually do in the FBI. But he's handled it really well. Now we're going to see Mr. Pro-Illegal Senator Chris Van Hollen go after Kash Patel for how they arrested a judge who was helping an illegal and that they took a photo of it.
Let me ask you a question about Judge Dugan. And I'm not going to get into about Judge Dugan, who was arrested, taken out in handcuffs from her courtroom. You agree that as director of the FBI, you should lead by example, right?
Try to.
Okay. Well, there's a confidentiality and media contacts policy within the Department of Justice guidelines that says specifically that DOJ personnel should not voluntarily disclose a photograph of a defendant unless it serves a law enforcement function or unless the photograph is already part of the public record in the case. Clearly, Judge Dugan's photograph was not already part of the public record in the case. So it appears that what you did was a violation of that policy, unless you can express a clear law enforcement purpose for having done that.
The simple law enforcement purpose is to show America that we investigate any individual who commits a crime, especially those in positions of public trust.
But do you agree with the presumption of innocence in the U.S. system?
Absolutely. As a public defender, that's what I fought for years. Well, but that's different than this.
But Mr. Director, this is one of the reasons why that guideline is there, so people, especially the director of the FBI, doesn't announce to the country that somebody's already been found criminally liable when they haven't. She hasn't, has she?
But that's not what we said, that she was criminally liable. We said she was arrested and showed it.
Yeah, we know she was arrested, but the issue is the photograph. I'm asking you, going forward, I hope as the leader of the FBI, you will comply with the guidelines of the FBI that everybody else is expected to follow.
I believe I have, and I will going forward.
This is what I mean about how crystal clear Kash always has to be in every answer he gives. Now, it doesn't mean Democrats don't have to do this as well when they're in these positions, but we know they pull a lot of BS, so they deserve a lot of the criticism. And what right does he not have to showcase us, the American people, that voted in Trump, that by virtue of voting in Trump also voted in Kash Patel? We want to see if Trump and the administration is actually doing what they said they were going to do. Like going after these people, no matter their position, even if they're a judge, who's been helping illegal aliens, harboring illegal aliens like Tom Homan threatened. If you're doing that, we're going after you. What's wrong with that? But you see, there's going to be some clause the Democrats or some guy on this guy's staff is going to try to find to point out how that's not right. Why? Only because of the crime that this judge is being arrested for, which is harboring and helping illegals, which is exactly what Senator Chris Van Hollen has been trying to do in El Salvador. It's Sean Daniel here. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider hitting that like button or subscribing for more. You can watch another one right here, and I will see you in the next one.